There's something profound happening in the quiet corners of your mind when the doorbell rings and your entire body recoils. It's not rudeness. It's not antisocial behavior. It's your soul speaking a language you've forgotten how to hear. Carl Jung understood this better than most. He saw that our deepest reactions to others are mirrors reflecting the most hidden parts of ourselves. When visitors arrive unannounced, they don't just interrupt our day, they interrupt the careful choreography of our inner world. Picture this. You're in your sanctuary, wrapped in the familiar rhythms of solitude. The light falls just right through your window. Your thoughts flow like a gentle stream. Then suddenly, footsteps on your doorstep shatter this delicate ecosystem of peace. What you feel in that moment isn't hatred of people. It's the fierce protection of something sacred. Your authentic self, finally allowed to breathe without performance or pretense. Jung called this the difference between our persona and our true nature. The persona is the mask we wear in social situations, carefully constructed to meet expectations. But in solitude, that mask can finally rest on the shelf. When visitors threaten this space, they're not just asking for your time. They're demanding that you put the mask back on, step back into character, become someone other than who you truly are in your most natural state. Think of a wild animal in its den. When intruders approach, the animal doesn't feel guilty about its desire to protect its space. It understands instinctively that survival depends on having a sanctuary, where it can simply exist without defense or explanation. Your home, your solitude, your carefully guarded inner world. These aren't luxuries. They're necessities for psychological survival in a world that constantly demands performance. But here's where Jung's insight becomes truly illuminating. The people you most resist having over often represent aspects of yourself you're not ready to face. That overly talkative neighbor who exhausts you. They might mirror a part of you that desperately wants to be heard, but has learned to stay quiet. The relative who always brings drama. Perhaps they reflect your own suppressed emotions seeking expression. We don't just dislike visitors because they disturb our peace. We dislike them because they force us to confront the parts of ourselves we've exiled to the shadows. Jung believed that what we resist most strongly in others often points to our own disowned qualities. What he called the shadow self. Consider the friend who always seeks attention. If their presence makes you particularly uncomfortable, ask yourself, is there a part of you that hungers for recognition but has learned to hide that need? Or the family member who can't sit still, always filling silence with chatter? Does their nervous energy remind you of your own anxiety, carefully controlled and hidden away? The visitors we most want to avoid often carry messages from our unconscious mind, showing up like unwelcome messengers delivering truths we're not ready to receive. But there's another layer to this phenomenon that Jung explored deeply: the introvert's relationship with energy itself. For some souls, energy isn't limitless. It's not a river that flows endlessly, but a well that needs time to refill. Social interaction, no matter how pleasant, draws from this well. When you hate having visitors, you might be protecting not just your space, but your very life force. You understand intuitively that you only have so much to give, and you want to give it consciously, deliberately, to what truly matters. This isn't selfishness. It's self-awareness. It's the wisdom of knowing your own rhythms and honoring them, even when the world tells you that availability should be unlimited. Jung himself was known to disappear for weeks at a time, retreating to his stone tower where he could reconnect with his deepest thoughts without interruption. He understood that creativity, insight, and psychological healing all require what he called fertile solitude. Not the loneliness of isolation, but the rich, generative quiet of being fully present with yourself. In our hyper-connected world, this kind of solitude has become increasingly rare. We're expected to be constantly available, always ready to engage, perpetually open for business. But your soul knows better. When it rejects visitors, it's not rejecting love or connection. It's insisting on the space needed to maintain your authentic relationship with yourself. Think of it like tending a garden. Some plants thrive with constant attention, while others need periods of undisturbed growth. Your psyche might be the latter, requiring seasons of solitude to bloom fully. The guilt you feel about not wanting visitors often comes from a misunderstanding about what makes someone a good person. We've been taught that goodness equals constant availability, that love means always saying yes. But Jung would argue that the person who knows their limits and honors them is actually more capable of genuine connection when they do choose to engage. When you protect your solitude, you're not being antisocial. You're being intentional about the quality of attention you can offer when you do connect with others. There's also the matter of boundaries. Invisible lines that protect your emotional and psychological territory. People who hate visitors often have highly sensitive boundary systems. You might be someone who feels everything deeply, who absorbs the emotions and energy of others without even trying. In this case, limiting visitors isn't about disliking people. It's about emotional self-preservation. Jung recognized that some individuals are natural empaths, psychological sponges who soak up the feelings around them. For these souls, solitude isn't a preference. It's a necessity for maintaining psychological equilibrium. If you're one of these people, your dislike of visitors might be your psyche's way of preventing emotional overwhelm. It's not meanness, it's wisdom. Consider how you feel after certain people leave your space. Do you feel drained, confused, like you need hours to remember who you are again? This is your soul giving you information about what kinds of interactions serve your highest good. But perhaps the most profound insight Jung offers is this: your relationship with visitors reflects your relationship with yourself. If you hate having people over because you feel judged, ask yourself, how harshly do you judge yourself? If you resist visitors because you feel inadequate, explore, where do you feel inadequate in your own eyes? Sometimes what we call hatred of visitors is really fear of being truly seen. We've grown so comfortable with our carefully curated solitude that the thought of someone witnessing our authentic, unguarded selves feels terrifying. Your messy kitchen becomes a metaphor for your messy emotions. Your cluttered desk mirrors your cluttered thoughts. Your comfortable clothes reflect your desire to exist without pretense. When visitors threaten to witness this authentic version of you, the resistance isn't about them. It's about your own relationship with visibility and vulnerability. Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, requires periods of withdrawal from collective influence. Sometimes hating visitors is actually your individuation process protecting itself. You're not just avoiding people, you're avoiding the subtle pressure to conform to external expectations, to be who others need you to be instead of who you actually are. This is particularly true if you're in a period of personal transformation. Change requires a kind of psychological cocoon, a protected space where new aspects of yourself can emerge without premature exposure to outside judgment. The caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly in public view. It disappears completely, dissolves its old form in the privacy of its chrysalis, and emerges only when the transformation is complete. Your home might be serving as this chrysalis, a sacred space where the outdated versions of yourself can safely dissolve and something truer can take shape. But Jung also warned against using solitude as a permanent escape from the human experience. The goal isn't to avoid all human connection, but to engage from a place of authentic choice rather than obligation. The person who truly knows themselves can say no to the visitors who drain them and yes to the connections that nourish. They can distinguish between solitude that heals and isolation that harms. If you hate visitors, perhaps you're being called to examine the quality of your connections rather than avoiding connection altogether. Maybe the issue isn't that you dislike people, but that you haven't found your people. Those rare souls who leave you feeling more yourself rather than less, who energize rather than deplete. Jung spoke of what he called psychological types, different ways of moving through the world and processing experience. If you're someone who hates visitors, You might simply be an introverted type trying to live according to extroverted expectations. The culture often suggests that the ideal life is full of social gatherings, spontaneous visits, and constant connectivity. But for the introverted soul, this model is not just uncomfortable, it's psychologically harmful. Your hatred of visitors might be your authentic nature asserting itself against cultural programming that doesn't fit your psychological blueprint. There's something beautiful about a person who knows their own rhythms so intimately that they can protect what they need to thrive. It takes courage to disappoint others in service of your own psychological health. But this courage is exactly what Jung believed was necessary for individuation. The willingness to be who you are even when it goes against collective expectations. When you honor your need for solitude, you're not just taking care of yourself. You're modeling for others that it's okay to know yourself deeply and live according to that knowledge. You're showing that authentic relationships begin with an authentic relationship with yourself, that you can't truly give to others what you haven't first cultivated in solitude. Perhaps what you call hatred of visitors is really love of yourself. Love that's finally learned to speak up, to set boundaries, to protect what's precious. In a world that often confuses busyness with importance and social activity with happiness, your resistance to visitors might be a form of quiet rebellion, a refusal to participate in systems that don't honor your true nature. Jung understood that the path to psychological wholeness often requires periods of going against the grain, of choosing what serves your soul over what serves social expectations. Your dislike of visitors isn't a flaw to be fixed, but a message to be understood. It's your psyche telling you something important about what you need to thrive, about the conditions that allow your truest self to emerge. Listen to that message. Honor it. Not because you should avoid human connection, but because you deserve connections that arise from authenticity rather than obligation. The visitors worth having are the ones who leave you feeling more yourself, not less. They're the ones who understand that your solitude isn't rejection, but preparation. Preparation to meet them with the fullest, most genuine version of who you are. In the end, Jung would say that your relationship with visitors is really your relationship with yourself reflected outward. When you truly know and accept yourself, you naturally attract people who know and accept you too. And sometimes the greatest gift you can give the world is not your constant availability, but the depth and authenticity that comes from honoring your need to be alone with your own soul. If this message touched you, comment, "I choose my peace." Because choosing your peace isn't selfish. It's the first step toward offering your truest gifts to a world that desperately needs what only you can give.